Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast. I'm Chris, joined by my brothers Adam and Eric.
Yeah.
And in today's episode, we are back in the room to give our take on our favorite game from the last decade. Bum, bum, bum. Which basically means that you've listened to 10 episodes.
We're going to say them all again.
Yeah, you're going to listen to them all over
Let's
again.
do it again.
Cue the music.
It's like that moment, Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, yeah. When they get to the point.
Yeah, they get to the very end, it's all like slow pace and stuff. Okay, but now what we do? Let's just go back. Let's do it again.
I'm kind of hoping that this podcast has that feeling, like this particular episode, because like I remember watching that movie, Mad Max Fury Road. When they got to the point, I was like, "Oh, please don't end now! Like I've had such a blast, don't end now." And I went, "Let's do it again." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it again!" And I genuinely go to all the same locations. Literally, it is genuinely more the same shit, but way more intense. So that's what today is going to be. It's going to be more the same shit, but way more intense.
More cursing.
Yeah, fuck loads. No, not really. So, what we're going to do, and I hope you guys have thought about this, and I hope you have ranked them, right? Nope. Because I'm actually going to come around to you and ask for your...
So are you starting?
One, you'll see what way we're going to do this.
So
You'll see what way we're going to do this. I don't even know
what's happening.
But what I want you to have thought about, and hopefully you have thought about it, your top 3 contenders, right? With your number 1 game being the game of the decade for you, but the other 2 is like they came close, and they are spot number 3 and spot number 2. All right? Okay. Is that cool? And then the other thing we're going to do before we get to them is going to come around and do quick honorable mentions. So out of the games, like these will obviously all be games that came up before, because if they didn't, they should have.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Just name completely different games.
Like, yeah, no, it's actually the Untitled Goose Game. It's like, you never fucking mentioned that in the last episode. Like, shut the fuck up.
Forza 4, that was great.
What's Forza 4?
The racing game.
Oh.
It's my greatest game of the decade, man. Fuck's sake. Get with it.
It goes beyond. But yeah, so quick honorable mentions are going to be just like a game or maybe 2 games that you would have put in the top 3, but one game maybe got there just before it, right? Like they nearly, maybe a battle between them in terms of top 3, right? So honorable mentions are going to be all of your games. No, so I'm going to go first just to give you as a quick...
Yeah, but you just look really intense when you're trying to explain this. Like no, Mark, what you gotta know is that you gotta fucking have 3, and then you gotta like choose 1. Thanks for telling me how to pick a favourite.
Sorry. I'm formatting the episode.
You should make a wiki page just dedicated to that. Just explaining how to pick a favourite. Chris's FAQ.
Welcome to Favopedia. Okay.
But I don't know.
Let's just take this shit seriously. Okay. So, my honorable mentions, right?
Right.
We'll
is this 3 or is it 2?
I'm gonna do 2 honorable mentions, right? Because there are basically 3 games that nearly got the... There's too many games. There's 3 games that nearly got the number 3 spot, and 1 just won out over the other 2. Okay? Did you get
Mind's blown.
X equals Y except after G. My 2 honorable mentions are Mass Effect 2.
Okay. Surprised by that.
And Batman Arkham City. They nearly made it into my top 3. But
I see.
You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying now.
Okay.
You actually did need to explain
Jesus
this.
Christ.
Yeah.
So we're actually making 5 games.
No, you don't. You don't have to. It's before we get into it. I just think it's a good idea to acknowledge that, like, out of the games you had before, like,
all right,
which ones maybe came close. So for me, Arkham City and Mass Effect 2 nearly made it into my top 3, but they just missed out. because like the other games, I just prefer in the long run. But for all the reasons I've said before, like, you know, people could look back on the episodes, but like, yeah, Mass Effect 2 was for literally because of the cast and all the roleplay options and everything that we've talked about before. That's just a great sci-fi adventure. And then Batman Arkham City, just because it's a really great Batman story and it just does more of what Asylum did, and I love the Arkham games, and it's been clear that I do. So, and also there's something wrong with my voice there. It's clear.
You fucking like that, don't you?
Turds. So they are my honorable mentions. They nearly made it to top 3. So Eric, is there any game that you think deserves an honorable mention from your list?
I will choose God of War as an honorable mention.
Yeah.
And have to go back through the list.
No, that's okay. Yeah, you don't have to have 2. It's just that I genuinely was struggling between those 2 and another one. So.
I'll choose... I will do 2 though.
So shut the fuck up and just listen to my 2.
For fuck's sake. I have no fucking clue. They were all so good. God of War and...
I mean, technically they all get an honorable mention. Really.
True,
like,
yeah.
You know, they were all your favourite games of the last decade. But I'm trying to narrow it down.
XCOM 2?
XCOM 2, cool. So God of War and XCOM 2 are your honorable mentions?
Yeah.
Anything you want to say on them that you hadn't said before?
Well, yeah, I think there was one thing I was wanting to say about God of War, was there?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
Yeah.
You tell me.
I'm
it is a job
also
interview.
asking
Impress
me.
Yeah, you tell me.
They've gone blank. They were just really good games. God of War, obviously, it doesn't go to the top 3 because
Obviously.
Obviously it does not, because
why is that obvious?
well, I played it before.
Yeah, okay.
In the style of it's kind of like Last of Us and Skyrim slapped into one.
Okay.
So it's like those two, and then XCOM franchise, if I can say that, and make it narrower, because it's a completely different style game that I never really played before. Real-time strategy, turn-based strategy game where every life counts, every life matters, which you don't really get in a tactical-based game.
And no honorable mention to Infinity Blade 2 or 3 then, or
they go beyond.
Oh, they're
on a
3.
whole different scale.
Adam, any honorable mentions?
There's a lot of really good games. I've got maybe 20 honorable mentions.
Yeah.
And I would probably put God of War into honorable mention as well. Along with probably 2013's Tomb Raider.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Wow, nice one. And is there anything on them that hadn't been said before that you feel like, yeah, that's something I didn't think about before, didn't get to say before?
Just that I think they're actually quite similar in many ways, those 2 games, and it's the type of game that I really enjoy, which is this almost open linear kind of area.
Yeah.
A lot like the Arkham games as well, where it's just this large, well, there's multiple kind of maps nearly that you can go to.
Yeah.
And you can come back.
And it's not necessarily open world, but it is
not open world.
Open.
Yeah, it's definitely a type of game that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so those are the honorable mentions before we get into the top 3 for each of us for games of the decade. These could be the 3 same games. They might not be. We don't know.
Yeah.
And we might surprise each other, maybe.
I might even surprise myself. Like, I'm putting myself on, like, I'm in pressure now to kind of come up with 3.
Okay.
But this is just what, like, when I look at them and I kind of go, yeah, but it kind of depends on my mood as well.
Oh, I know that, yeah. And, like, sometimes these things can change. Like, I know for me, personally, I won't say it yet, but, like, my number 1 and my number 2 were really close and at times interchangeable, depending on my mood.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately... And I had to I had to look at the pros and, well, there's not many cons, but I had to look at the pros of both and see which one do I think, in general,
is the bestest.
Do I think deserves that top spot? So that's kind of the way I worked it out. But so we'll go around now and say our number 3 spot. Okay. So for me, number 3 is it's like. What's he going to say? It's like, well, it has to be one of the ones you said before. It could be anything. No, for me, number 3 is actually, and I think this will possibly surprise you, Uncharted 4.
Wait,
Descent.
what?
Yeah, brother. For a couple of reasons. What was that noise? What's that noise? Uncharted 4 mainly because
The dog is playing with a squeaker.
Dog's playing with a squeaky toy. Dog, where'd you get the squeak?
The dog hasn't got a name.
Yeah, hey, dog. I know he's no dog. Pippin, she's been here before. She's been featured on some of the episode titles, actually.
Good dog.
Good dog. Yeah, boy.
Squeak it, dog.
But Squeak a Dog should be the name of the game.
Untitled Squeak Dog.
And tap it. And squeak it. No, Uncharted 4 because I really wanted to put a PS4 title in there somewhere, right? That wasn't just a remaster.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was looking through all the PS4 titles and the ones that I think have had the biggest impact on me, or the ones that I think are like definitively should be played by people, for me it really, I think it's Uncharted 4. I think for all the reasons we've said before, but it's just a fun adventure, explosive action, the Uncharted package, but also quite a mature story as well on top of that. So yeah, it just ticked all the boxes, and I do think it's definitively probably one of the best PS4 games out there, and like like graphics wise and everything is just fucking stunning. But there's another reason it made my top 3, and this one is a bit more personal. So we the game is about brothers, and we have a group chat called the Brothers Drake, which is named after a chapter in that game.
Yeah.
Right. And when we were trying to name this podcast, at one point, the Brothers Drake was a suggestion because it's the name of our group chat. We were like, well, we can't really call it that because that'll make it seem like the whole series is just about Uncharted, which it's not, even though we mention it quite a bit and probably will continue to. So we're like, so a play on that became the Brothers Take, which is 3 brothers giving their take on something. But for us, we knew the roots of kind of where it came from. And so it kind of stemmed from that. So for that reason, it kind of has like a little personal liking as well. That got it in there. Eric, don't cry. It's okay.
Fucking dweeb.
But no, and then there's the whole Uncharted story and true line, which is sic parvis magna, greatness from small beginnings.
Man, make me tear up here.
Boy, fuck off. Right? I'm just giving my reasons. So I like to think that this will get bigger and bigger as we progress and get better. Yeah. As we get better at it. So Uncharted 4, Thief's End is my number 3 for Game of the Decade. Your turn, Eric.
Oh, my turn.
Your move.
Your move.
Oh,
Chessmaster 67?
Huh?
That's the name of the game.
Oh. Wait, you say chess?
No.
I thought you said chest master. And I was like, what is that? Waxing? These games is wax someone's
wax on and wax off. Chest master. It's actually a game where you lockpick chests.
I was thinking more of those, like, you know those things they always sell on TV?
It's the new Chestmaster 67. Yeah. Oh,
get a big chest now.
JBL.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Clean it, wax it, stuff it. Yeah. Okay. Your number 3 spot.
Witcher 3. The
Whoa!
Wild Hunt. Yes, would be my 3rd favourite.
Oh, I hope you've thought about this because I want. It depends on what's coming up next.
I have to think about this.
Yeah, well, it's just.
I have to give a reason.
I'm just making this up as I go.
No, hold on. No, and I'm not surprised The Witcher 3 is in there. I actually just thought it was going to be further up because I once asked you, did you prefer this game or another game? And you said you preferred this game.
Oh yeah, you did do that. Yeah, but
did
then
do that.
and then I didn't, and I changed my mind. You know, because it depends, right? It
So you know what number 2 is.
It depends,
Right.
on our mood, doesn't it?
Okay. Well, yeah, fair enough. So.
And then also, to be honest, the other game did it first.
Okay.
So like,
So Game of the Decade can mean
Witcher
something
3,
different to-
The Witcher 3 is 3rd because it's kind of a perfect blend of the next my top 2 essentially.
Cool.
But because it's such a vast open world with such a new take on doing fantasy, is one of the biggest reasons why I love it.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to talk about it more?
Nee.
Yeah, of course you are. Yeah,
All right,
no,
okay.
you can continue. You can say more if there's anything else you want to say on the game that you hadn't said before.
The idea of, I think I've already said this, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been so long. It's been a whole many years ago since I said this. This the idea of playing as a character where you're not the most important thing in this.
Yeah.
You're just a guy going through this world, and it's a very personal quest. It's a vast open world, but it's a very personal quest, which is quite nice. And it does take on that kind of, that fatherly kind of thing in a really weird way. You are a father, kind of, trying to find his daughter, or his ward anyway. And then like having to come across all these people who are always wanting something, and you just want to find your ward, and you just want to get her to safety, but everyone else keeps fucking up your day, and it's just really good. It's just a really good game, and really, I think the gameplay is not perfect, but it suits the world, and definitely is one of the best sword fighting gameplay I've ever experienced.
Wow.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. Go play Witcher 3.
Go play Witcher 3.
Oh, you probably all have, so you're probably going to tell me and Adam, go play Witcher 3. Yeah. Okay, Adam. Your number 3 spot.
Uncharted 4.
Oh! I wasn't expecting that. I actually wasn't expecting that. I actually thought everyone else was going to be like, what? Like, obviously we all loved it.
Yeah.
But I actually thought people wouldn't have it as high up.
Yeah, and similar reasons, actually.
Oh, right.
Looking through, although I really enjoyed the PS4 era of games, I know we always say PlayStation. Like, I do play Xbox as well, but it's just that.
Well, I actually don't own an Xbox, so I pretty much solely play PlayStation.
I just think that the games were heavier hitters on the PlayStation, which is why I just mentioned it. But although the games were really good, this is my least favorite generation of games.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
There's just not as many like really impressive games, I think, this generation. But looking through, that's one where I kind of say it's maybe not necessarily the best game on the PS4.
Yeah.
But to me, it kind of just sums up what makes the PS4 special. Like if you like Uncharted 4, then it's all the kind of exclusive games on the PS4 are kind of very similar in terms of, like, okay, so they're single player, story driven, they're very character driven games.
Yeah.
You know, every single game on the PS4 kind of has that focus.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though some might be open world, some might be, you know, fantasy or whatever, but they all tend to have that type of focus, which is nice because it just means that Sony are so focused on the types of experiences they want you to have on PlayStation. So I just see it as being kind of the poster child for Sony at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think it really sums up the studio of Naughty Dog, what they've achieved up to
over
this point.
time. Yeah. It's even like that moment where they get you to play Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah. Within
it, and it's literally just like, look at our roots and look at where we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, I know that it's a funny moment, but it's also a really powerful moment, I think.
Yeah, they did a really good job at, like, how do you take Uncharted to the next level but still remain an Uncharted game?
Yeah.
Very much like what God of War, I think, achieved. It's not as much of a jump, obviously, but it's similar. It's still trying to mature it a bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Number 2. We could talk about this game forever. Let's do it again. My number 2 spot, and it really is close to the number 1. Like, for me, I don't know if it will be for everyone, but Skyrim. The Elder Scrolls Skyrim is just fucking phenomenal. I know Christian put a comment on one of our episodes, I think, where he was like, I'm like, he's talking about it for 50 minutes. Calm down, lads.
Yeah.
Welcome to 50 minutes more.
Yeah, we could. You could easily have a whole series dedicated to just talking about Skyrim.
Of course you could.
There is podcasts of Skyrim.
Yeah,
because there's too. I wouldn't say there's too much to it. There's just a lot to do in it. There is. It's funny enough that it's not overwhelming.
No.
the amount of stuff you can do now.
I'm
Because
starting
you
to
don't
think
have to.
I'm starting to think that game is procedurally generated with its quests. Like,
Yeah, it's like it was like No Man's Sky, like, and it's just developing quests every day.
It was like, do you ever see Skyrim Granny?
No.
There's this YouTuber who streams. She's an old woman who streams, and she doesn't only play, but she's famous for just playing Skyrim on PC.
She's like, I can remember what it was like.
And she's known as the Skyrim Granny. And people, like, she kind of really changed people's lives, because there's people that didn't have like this granny figure. Like, she signs off by saying good night grandchildren, like, basically.
Aww.
And she takes it as though she's now going to tell them kind of like a bedtime story.
Yeah.
Where she'll go into this world, and it's like, well, what type of quest did our hero go on today, kind of a thing. And she says that it's like, when she hears people say that they've completed Skyrim, it's like, you can't complete Skyrim, because there's an endless amount of. So she makes up her own. Like, here's this character, here's his backstory, essentially. Like, she makes it up as she goes. And she plays it not in thinking like, well, what would I do in the game, but rather, what would this character do in the game. So she has a completely different kind of experience every time she plays it.
Brilliant.
But they're after kind of immortalizing her a bit, because Bethesda have scanned her to put her in Elder Scrolls 6 as a character.
Amazing. I can't wait for Elder Scrolls 6 whenever it happens. But yeah, Skyrim, for all the reasons I've said before, like, it's just totally immersive. It's a world. I don't think I've ever felt so transported to a world as in that particular game.
Yeah.
And especially like because you can see it in first person, so you really can feel like you're in the world, and it's not so much like I have felt like I've been teleported to other worlds through other characters, but it's like, oh cool, I get to be in this world and watch this character. But in Skyrim, I felt like I've been there, and it's just like I just sunk so many hours and so much fun into it. It's just pure escapism, I feel, and that's why it hits my number 2 spot. How about you, Eric?
For me, it would be The Last of Us.
Number 2.
Number 2 is The Last of Us.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that. Twisty. Okay, so The Last of Us is number 2. Why number 2?
Why number 2?
Yeah.
Because I said so.
Fucking
whoa.
Sorry.
All right.
Anything you want to say on it you haven't said before? This is the replay value, man.
Well, replay value is very good. Nothing better than just shitting yourself. No, actually, in fairness, it is a game that you can very easily jump into and play the whole thing again, and it doesn't get boring. Even though there's no choices to it, and it's a very linear story, it's a very linear map and layout, it doesn't get boring. It just, you can keep playing it. And I don't know, they do a really good job at making you connect with Ellie. Yeah. So again, similar to Witcher, where you're playing as Geralt trying to find Ciri, who's actually all grown up and you haven't seen her in ages. Now this is kind of, you're playing as Joel, who's always dealing with Ellie, like, you know, that kind of father figure kind of thing. Just obviously more connecting to a male. And
sounds like you had daddy issues.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, hey, my dad was a good dad.
Yeah, your dad was.
We did say before we might not all have the same dad, didn't we? As a joke in an episode. Well, here's the reveal. No, I'm joking. Cool.
Yeah, no, it's just a very, very good game with a very. I think you've said it before in one of your.
I don't know. Yeah, it depends on what you meant to say.
Where they do a very different and nice looking post-apocalyptic world, but it's still a post-apocalyptic world. Like instead of the dull colors with the sand, it's
I've said this before in person. I've never said it. I didn't say it on the podcast, but
did you not?
No,
okay.
But no, it's a good point because it was one of the things that used to bother me about, and it's. There's nothing you could do about it. It's the point of the Fallout series, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm not bashing the Fallout series, but sometimes I find walking around that world a bit boring.
Yeah.
Because of the barren wasteland. Now the barren wasteland has to be there. It's a nuclear Fallout, right? So.
He said the title.
There's no avoiding it. It has to do that. So like, I'm not in any way bashing the game as a result, but just The Last of Us has a post-apocalyptic world that's a bit more lush and more visually interesting to me. So yeah, no, I have said that before.
Yeah,
just not on the air.
And then just the little things of seeing how people live in this world. You know what I mean? How what do they use as like warnings, or what do they use for blankets? What do they use as currency and everything?
Yeah.
But it's just little subtle things that you just might see while you're playing it, or things that are just done through dialogue, or you know what I mean, which is just really brings the world alive and kind of creates like almost a history to like everything people do.
Yeah.
Which is it's just a really great game, really brought to life.
Awesome. Adam, you're number 2.
Gonna surprise you, Chris. Skyrim.
Whoa! What the fuck? Holy shit, Pepper! Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
No. But so far we're exactly the same.
Yeah. I bet you're gonna shock me on the next one.
Probably.
So, okay. Is there anything about Skyrim that we didn't say before?
No, I think we covered nearly. Well,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more.
There's a lot
we could say so much about it, but
it's just
I mean, the fact that it's still being released.
Yeah.
Like, it just tells you a lot about the success of that game.
It's like Resi 4. You know, it gets re-released on a console every fucking week.
Yeah. Yeah, we owe a lot to Skyrim, I think.
We do. I do personally. It paid off my debts. No, no, but just like, yeah, it's just the escapism and the fantasy of it. So, okay. For number 1 then, I think me and Adam will go first, Eric, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's no problem.
And then I'm so curious to see
what's your number 1?
What your number 1 is.
Okay.
I fucking hope it is. Okay, so I think people have probably figured it out by now. Like, the game of the decade I'm giving to The Last of Us.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the main reason was not only because of how immersive the experience was. There's a couple of games that, for me, when I play them, I tell people, you need to experience this.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's how I rate or rank whether it's like, would it go into my top 10 games of all time kind of a thing, right? So like Metal Gear Solid 1, for example, is one of those games where I go, if you haven't played it, you can fucking need to play it if you're into games. Like,
yeah.
It's just groundbreaking, and it pushed the industry forward, and it was so influential. And The Last of Us felt like that for me. And we have, sorry, it didn't just feel like it. We have seen the influence. It did influence
every game afterwards is like obviously impacted by it.
The ones that often came up time and time again as big favorites were the ones that had learned something from The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And had done something to call back to it. So it's just the impact.
Even Uncharted 4, which we just mentioned, has had influence on it.
Yeah.
Obviously the same creators, but it did.
But it's the impact that it's had. And I think it's important to note as well. Like Uncharted 4 is a newer game, and there was a lot of the newer games that came out much after The Last of Us, obviously.
Yeah.
That a game being new doesn't make it better.
No.
And even like to this day, my favorite game of all time is still like the first game I ever experienced, and that could be part-time nostalgia. It could be rose-tinted glasses.
Well, it's like even if you play Pokemon on the Game Boy, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter the bells and whistles you can throw at Pokemon now. I still think Pokemon on the Game Boy is way more fun than the current ones.
Well, it just felt like the way to play it, didn't it? And
well, it's just that
pick
they,
it up and take it with
regardless of the technology, regardless of the visuals, etc. Like, obviously, all that adds up.
Yeah,
it really does add to a really full experience. But if the core mechanics aren't nailed down, then it's just a hot mess. You know, we can always go, oh yeah, but just think of the time, right? But I always feel like games that are kind of really that feel dated, were not well thought out.
Yeah.
Because, like, Pac-Man is as well. Like, that's easy enough to play now.
Pac-Man is timeless.
Tetris
is timeless. Snake.
Like, go back to it doesn't matter what type of, how you up-res the graphics.
Developments were,
Yeah.
And I suppose, I don't know if there's anything on The Last of Us that we haven't said before. I mean, other than, like, a step-by-step analysis of the whole fucking thing. Like, but it just broke grounds, and it became memorable. And it stayed, like I said in episode 1, a game where the gameplay serves the story and stays true to the story is always going to be the ones that impact me the most.
Yeah.
And that game does that every step of the way. Like it hammers that story home, and they focused purely on that experience. And again, took a gamble on a new IP with new characters, new gameplay, in a world that was going more and more towards multiplayer and open maps and all this stuff. And they changed the industry.
Yeah, like it is definitely like it's my favorite game of the decade.
Yeah.
I would be pretty shocked if the next decade can offer me a better game. Because
that's including the second one.
It's not it's not my favorite game of all time.
No.
And as good as this game is, I still haven't experienced the game better than my favorite game of all time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I don't know what. Yeah, again,
and that could be nostalgia.
That could be nostalgia, but
glasses, anything.
I just think it's because there's like this chain effect. I think, each game kind of learns from the next. But yeah, I would be shocked if the next decade can offer me a better game than Last of Us.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I kind of hope. I hope it does.
Well, it's not that every game afterwards is dog shit.
No, not at all.
It is unfortunate that we end up having to try and compare.
Yeah, and look,
games are so similar.
I wouldn't be surprised. The Last of Us is a game where, if someone did say that's their favorite game, I won't argue with them. No. I would just go, good for you.
I would argue though if someone said it's their least favorite game
of all time.
Yeah,
I'd be like, have you ever played FIFA? You should go outside and fucking kick a ball. You freak. It can't be your least favorite game. It's not possible. It's literally physically impossible.
It is.
Like, there are so
game
many
of the year.
shitty games.
For 200 years.
Fun?
Game of the year for 200 years, folks. You heard it here. And yeah, I think for me it's undoubtedly the game of the decade.
Yeah.
But I'm so curious what Eric's gonna say.
What's your number one, Eric?
Beat Saber.
Yeah, baby.
What?
Beat Saber, man. Nothing better having lightsabers.
Nothing better shitting yourself with lightsabers.
You got lightsabers and you get the cut boxes and you make music. It's like Guitar. It's like
your
Guitar Hero, but I can actually play it.
Skyrim.
Skyrim is actually my number one.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. See,
I was actually given the hint with God of War.
I know. Yeah. Okay. I know.
By
you did.
saying.
I tell you what threw me off.
Because I didn't put a second like all you guys?
No, that didn't throw me off at all, and I don't mind that. And actually, I'm not... if someone said Skyrim is their game of the decade, I am not surprised.
Okay.
I think that's perfectly fine, and I...
Used the word fine, he's not happy.
No, because it was my...
was there a full stop?
Until I played the last... if The Last of Us didn't come out, that's my game of the decade.
Yeah. Right.
It's my number 2, they're close.
Okay.
I'm surprised because I asked you before, which did you prefer, The Witcher 3 or Skyrim?
Yeah,
I know I asked you again in this episode, but you did say at the time you had to think about it, Witcher 3, because it's got a more finite story.
Yeah.
So what is it about Skyrim then that makes it one?
Well, Skyrim, I did think about it again, but Skyrim came before The Witcher 3.
Okay.
And therefore, it having a Northern-style immersive world could have... very possibly inspired The Witcher 3 to have. Or even... Well, I know The Witcher's obviously set in a Northern style setting, but to kind of try bring that world alive and this, kind of have lots of different side quests and all these different villages and everything is very much like Skyrim. Skyrim has that, but Skyrim has a much more immersive world with a definitely way better soundtrack, because I did think about that. I did think about it after I answered the question. Then I thought about The Witcher 3. Then thought about its soundtrack and went, actually, its soundtrack is really fucking annoying.
Has this plagued you ever since?
It kind of has.
Are you raging that it was on recording?
I was thinking that, about the combat music to Witcher 3, and I went, that's actually one of the worst things to hear.
As you go spinning into battle.
And so I'm attack people, then it's imagine listening to that over and over again while fighting people.
Yeah, well,
very annoying.
It's like watching the start of Inside Man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
then when you do Skyrim is it's none of its music is crap to Skyrim, and it just has
I don't think so.
Each city, each town, each area, each person has a design to them that kind of tells a story, which again I've told I love. So The Last of Us does that with the whole what they use for currency or what they'd use as warning signs. But Skyrim obviously does it better because that was the whole point, was to try to build a whole world that could be immersive.
Yeah.
And then The Witcher 3 is this big open fantasy world.
Yep.
Skyrim does it better.
I suppose Skyrim is kind of like Infinity Blade, but better.
Yeah, it'd be like Infinity Blade.
Like
well, no, hold on.
No.
Now, Infinity Blade is a whole different kettle of fish. Whole different kettle of fish. Because Infinity Blade is nothing like Skyrim, Chris. I don't know why we say that. It's more like Dark Souls. God damn it, because it's got the robots and the dragons and the constant dying.
I think it's actually not. I'm only surprised because I was thrown off before. Right? I am not
thrown off. Boom! All my plan.
Was my plan
that was I was a master genius.
But I'm actually not surprised that Skyrim is your game of the decade.
No.
It's me. I've written all over. It's my kind of thing.
No, but it's like
kettle of fish.
Like a lot of the early games, like what we're talking about. In the very first episode, we went around the table and said, "What kind of games are your favorite?" Right? And it just so happened that like me and Adam kind of both said ones that are more character driven, and the gameplay is totally there to serve the story.
Yeah.
And Eric, you had said mainly ones that have a really deep lore that you can like really get lost into. I'm actually thinking about exactly what you said, and it sounded like a pitch for a job. It was like, something that I could really make my brain think. That's what I realized. But so if you look at the games that we've chosen for Game of the Decade, that absolutely adds up. The Last of Us is a character-driven narrative game where the gameplay just serves the story. Yeah. And Skyrim is the lose yourself in a world, deep lore, rich, get you thinking and use your imagination. Because
even think about that, like I played Dragon Age Inquisition as well, and I actually thought that the world that was really interesting, but the gameplay is fucking horrendous.
Yeah,
it's so bad that it does. I never want to kind of play it again. But the world was really interesting. And Skyrim, I don't think Skyrim actually has the best gameplay ever. Like I would say, Witcher 3 has better gameplay than Skyrim.
I'd agree with that.
Because Skyrim is just very. I use a sword and I hack and it's spew some magic and it's all very animated and stuff, but it doesn't need, that's one of the beautiful things about it, it doesn't need to really have amazing gameplay for it to work. Even like the horse animation is just so clunky. It's like so animated, so actually very not animated. Actually the horse barely even moves its legs and is just trotting along, but it doesn't need to.
You should see that in VR.
Is it hilarious?
Because all you can see is the back of the horse's head. You're just slightly elevated.
Whoa. Well, I think actually I don't know what I think. I totally forgot what I think. I have a clue.
But just the in-depth they go with it. Like the Khajiits, who are these nomadic traders that are hated by everybody, and they have to like sleep outside the villages and towns and stuff because no one trusts them because they think they're all thieves. It's really cool. Just
now there's a game that deals with discrimination.
Well, actually, talking about that,
there is, because of the
Dark Elves in Windhelm are all discriminated against and stuff,
and the entire, I suppose,
Nord culture is being discriminated against.
Yeah, the whole the conflict between the Imperials and the Nords all comes down to that. It's very much like Republicans versus whatever.
Well, I mean that whole thing is actually it's relatable. Yeah. I'm sure to many countries for their own histories, but like the three of us are Irish, so in Ireland it has a very relatable, like you're looking at the Empire and you're thinking, right, in medieval times that's the UK, and the Stormcloaks are the Irish who are fighting back, the rebels, right?
Want to tell us there something, Chris? You're part of some movement?
yeah. Ooh, up the rat. Look on the lads. No, I'm only joking. But like that, those kind of struggles in games, even though it's a totally different setting, like make games very relatable.
What's great is like neither of them are the bad guys. Well, it depends on your politics.
It's your point of view. Yeah.
Like with the Nords, you're kind of like they're trying to maintain their culture. And they're not, but they're stubborn to actually introduce newer things into their culture, right? Yeah. To abolish their religion and move forward with a new way of thinking, right? Whereas with the Imperials, they're like trying to obviously abolish the old ways, but try and be more inclusive of things like the elves and stuff, which the Nords don't like.
Yeah.
So,
but then the Nords
Again,
also
it's
don't.
really relatable.
But again, the Nords don't like the Elves because the Elves are forcing all the other countries in the Empire to accept their new system, and that's kind of why.
yeah. So it's
So
basically like
loads
the
of
EU.
And the Stormclaws just want to Brexit, man.
But it's interesting because like you can kind of go, you know what? I can see your point of view, but I can also see your point of view.
Yeah.
And I dislike what you're doing, but I also dislike what you're doing.
Which
but
makes
maybe
it good though, because you do have a choice to join them, and
Exactly,
whichever one
yeah.
you decide to join is not unjustified. You do have your point. Like in the end, you're going, well, of the two, what do I believe is the lesser of two evils in this scenario, or whatever.
And then just the whole everyday life aspect, the fact that you just live in this world.
Yeah,
It's like
Nothing better than getting some ingredients and cooking a meal.
yeah, brother.
Replay value at its finest.
Fucking right, brother.
Mining some
Skyrim has
ore.
amazing replay value.
But yeah, just it's incredible. I keep losing my train of thought every time I say so probably stop saying that.
So like I think it's not a surprise based on what we've talked about before.
Nice little
That
conclusion
those two games are our games of the decade. And interestingly, they both were PS3 releases.
Yeah.
And sorry, Xbox 360. The Skyrim.
Skyrim was Xbox 360 because I'm more inclusive.
So
there. and PC if we're going to
And
go
PC.
that
Oh
far.
yeah,
yeah,
PC.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Nintendo Switch
Well, it is now
that's
anyway.
much fucking later.
and Alexa.
But and it's interesting as well that they were the earlier part of the decade.
Yes.
I think, like there was, for me personally, like more of my like Uncharted 4 got into the top 3, but like I said, the other two contenders then, like all the other games that were contenders for game of the decade, were all the earlier part of the decade. In the later part of the decade, I'm not bashing those games, but I'm just
Another thing actually about
they were
Skyrim
more
is
impactful.
it's...
Whoa.
Sorry, man. I just got another point to say that not a lot of RPGs do this,
Okay, go ahead.
but having like
Sorry for trying to move on.
different armors and weapons and stuff. So the idea
You think
of
other RPGs don't do that? It's like the whole premise
no,
of an
but
RPG.
like you have iron, then you got steel, like that. The different weapons, armors. There's also like an upgrade to them in not just their damage and everything or their defense, but their appearance and then also their history. With,
Alright, yeah.
with them,
Cool.
right? And just putting that point in,
Good
like
point.
that even in your apparel and weapons, there's like a history and lore to them. All right, I'm just sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry for moving on, Eric.
Yeah, you can
You
move
got
on now.
anything else you
Chris.
wanna
I
say?
give you permission.
Well, let me ask you this.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So,
I'll let you move on now.
oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
You got the job, by the way.
Thanks.
So,
Fuck all y'all.
it has
I got
been
the job.
approved. Wait. So yeah, Last of Us and Skyrim are our games of the decade. And actually, it's fair to say that because they're either number 1 or number 2 for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So those two games are our games of the decade.
Mm-hmm.
Woo, we all win.
Whee!